Even in 100-degree heat, these edible perennials just don't die. Plant them once, harvest them forever. Growing your own food doesn't get easier than this. The first one is sage. Now, I absolutely love sage. This plant has been here actually for about 12 years, believe it or not. Hasn't died in our triple-digit summers. And the important thing about perennials is they also have to be cold tolerant, so they survive your cold winters and then come back in the spring. So sage is cold hardy down to about 10 degrees. So even if you live in a northern climate, you can grow sage. Now, sage is an amazing herb. It's aromatic, it has medicinal properties, and we absolutely love sage crisped up in a little bit of butter, and then you sprinkle it over chicken dishes, fish, into pastas, stews. It has such an amazing flavor and such an amazing aroma. There's so many different types of sage that you can grow. And a little tip for sage: if you have a couple of plants, you can let one plant flower like this one is. It draws in the pollinators like crazy. They absolutely love purple flowers. And then after it's done flowering, you can cut it way, way back, a really hard prune, and it will grow back several times a year here in Southern California. So definitely put sage on your list of must-grow perennials this summer, and you will absolutely love it. The next triple-digit heat-loving perennial is mint. Now, mint is definitely one of those plants that you just can't kill, even sometimes when you want to, because mint can really take over a garden bed. So very, very important that you always grow mint in a container or an enclosed area. I've got it here in a galvanized steel pipe, so it is not escaping this container. Mint, again, loves the triple digits, but also can survive temperatures down to -30 degrees. So if you're in a super cold climate, plant mint. It will survive those winters. And you want to harvest mint before it starts to flower for the best flavor. So the flowers are just starting to develop here on this mint plant. A super easy way to use it and harvest it: cut off a whole bunch of mint here. Just run your fingers backward over the stem to harvest the mint leaves. I've got plenty of mint leaves here, so I'm not too worried about them falling on the ground. And then you can use them in your beverages. They're great in mojitos. It has nice, soothing, cooling properties. We absolutely love mint tea, so if you've got a cold, definitely steep this in hot water, make yourself some mint tea. The important thing about mint is I don't like to let mine flower, because then what happens is the flowers drop and spill, and then you've got mint all over your garden. So I will prune this back before it flowers, and then you'll get a fresh new flush of growth. Nice, strong looking, healthy leaves. So you can see this one definitely needs to be cut back. So if anybody wants some mint, come on over and grab some. If you haven't planted mint or sage yet, now's a good time. And they are kind of difficult to grow from seed. So what I recommend is taking a cutting or getting a cutting from a friend. Super easy. Just have them snip off one of their mint stems and then remove the bottom leaves like this. Put it in a glass of water, and mint will grow roots within probably a week or so. You can pop it in soil, and boom, there you've got yourself a free mint plant. Now, sage and some of the other woodier perennials are a little bit harder to root. So you want to take a soft cutting from the plant, one of the cuttings that has a soft stem, not a woody stem, and then you'll do the same thing. Strip the bottom leaves off, put it in water on a windowsill out of direct sunlight. It'll grow roots. It might take 2 to 3 weeks for sage or some of the woodier perennials, but then you've got yourself free plants again, or you can pick up a plant at the garden center. If you don't have a large area to grow sage or mint, no worries at all. You can easily grow them in a container. The plants won't grow as large, but you'll still have gorgeous mint and sage to harvest. Next up is chamomile. This one is tough. It flowers all summer, even in triple-digit temperatures. Loves poor, sandy soil. You can neglect it. All you have to do to keep it up is harvest it and use the beautiful flowers in calming teas. So if you've never grown chamomile, don't be afraid to plant it in your garden. One of the things I love about chamomile is that you can grow it from seed. The seeds do take a couple of weeks to germinate, but it's super easy to do that. In fact, at the end of the season, you can even pull off some of the dry flower heads, kind of crumble them in your hands. The seeds are super, super tiny. And then you can plant the seeds in other areas of your garden so that you've got free plants for next year. Now, although chamomile looks gorgeous spilling over my raised beds, it's way more than just a flower. It's an edible flower. Not only that, it has a lot of medicinal properties as well. When we get sick, the first thing I do is come out here and harvest a whole bunch of chamomile flowers, steep it in hot water along with my mint for tea. It's very calming and soothing to a sore throat. And look at these gorgeous flowers. They're absolutely beautiful in beverages, on top of baked goods, and they taste delicious as well. Oregano is another tough as nails perennial. So if you're a beginner, definitely plant some oregano. It's really difficult to kill and it has so many uses in the kitchen. Super easy to grow from propagation, a little bit difficult to grow from seed. So I would recommend getting a cutting from a friend, grabbing a transplant at the garden center. It's so aromatic and super easy to harvest. This is one of the herbs we use the most, simply by, again, running your hands backwards against the stem. Got lots of oregano leaves. We love to use it in scrambled eggs and salads, and we absolutely love to bake it on our garden fresh pieces. So definitely grow oregano. You're gonna love it in your garden. It'll grow all summer long, and it's even cold hardy down to about 10 degrees. So you northern gardeners, perfect plant for you to grow as well. Now you do want to harvest oregano before it starts to flower for the best flavor. You can see the flower buds are just starting to form on this plant. So I'll prune it back to kind of stave off flowering. Grows beautifully in a container too, by the way, or you can grow it in a raised bed for a really large plant. But what I like to do is grow it in a couple different spots in my garden, let one flower, brings the bees right in, and also grow another one. It grows beautifully in hanging baskets. We'll keep it contained, and then you really have easy access to this for your kitchen to just pop out here and harvest it and use it in your recipes. While we're here at the hanging baskets, we have to talk about the other super powerhouses of the summer garden, and that is thyme and rosemary. Now these take the heat like crazy. Won't even skip a beat, but they also take the cold, so they will survive your winter temperatures. Thyme can handle down to -20, believe it or not, and rosemary can get down to about 10 degrees. Now they are difficult to grow from seed, so grab a cutting or a transplant from the garden center. Once again, thyme is a very delicate herb, so I always use it after I'm done cooking my food, just kind of sprinkled on top for that extra additional flavor. And rosemary, one of my favorite things to do with rosemary is to snip it, either put it in our beverages or to marinate chicken with it before you throw it on the grill. So get them planted in hanging baskets. They make great kind of fillers for the hanging baskets. Thyme's a really good spiller over the side, and you'll be able to grow these all summer long without a problem. If you're a beginner or want something that's drought tolerant and can take a lot of neglect, definitely plant these herbs. Now, the only thing you need to do to these herbs to keep them alive, aside from watering, is just harvest them once a week. Just snip them off. The more you harvest them, the more they grow. While rosemary and thyme can grow small in hanging baskets, they can also grow big as a landscape plant. So we're here in the front yard of our house, southern exposure, super hot in the summertime. This area just cooks. And the rosemary, thyme, and a new one here, lavender, just keep growing all summer. So keep that in mind if you've got an area that you need to kind of fill in that just cooks in the summertime. Plant these, and then you can trim them back to really manage the space. So plant different varieties. This is a rosemary that's flowering, different from the one in the hanging basket. And then over here, we have a flowering thyme, which you can see is just kind of spilling over and really filling this area nicely. Popping in a new one here, one of my all-time favorites is lavender. Lavender, if you want to attract the bees, this plant is just absolutely crawling with bees or buzzing with bees all over the place. And it's actually an edible herb and perennial as well. So it smells amazing. We love, again, to use it in teas. We put it in beverages, our sparkling water, to kind of give it some flavor and stir it around. Beautiful on baked goods. You can also harvest and dry the flowers. Here's some dried ones down here, and use it to repel pests. And it's also deer resistant. The deer don't like the scent or the strong flavor. Another triple digit loving perennial is passion fruit. Now this is a tropical plant that will thrive in the summer heat like crazy. The flowers are gorgeous, the fruit is delicious. We love to cut open the shell, scoop it out, eat it over yogurt or ice cream. It does survive temperatures down to about 30 degrees, but it can be damaged by frost. Passion fruit really works best if you live in a southern climate or a more temperate zone. But be forewarned, you do need a large space for passion fruit. There's just no way you can grow it in a small space unless you want it to take up your whole area. So here I've got it on about a 7-foot trellis, and it does need frequent trimming to contain the space, but it will produce hundreds and hundreds of passion fruit over the summer. Now, this is a purple passion fruit. There's tons of different varieties you can grow. So just research, talk to your local garden center, and find out what varieties grow best in your area. It does grow very well from cuttings. This plant, believe it or not, was given to me by Nisha, the moderator on our live stream, and it was a cutting that came in a cup about this big when it first started. So grab a cutting from a friend, get some planted, and you will love having passion fruit in your garden. These fruit are green now, but they turn purple when they're ripe. And when they're ripe, they simply fall to the ground. You can pick them up and then they'll ripen further inside. Another heat-loving perennial are fig trees. Now, a lot of people think you need a huge space to grow a fig tree. They can be very large, 10 or 20 feet, but not if you grow it like I'm growing it. I'm using the espalier method where I'm training the branches to grow horizontally here against this wire support. I've got a video on how to do that, so that way you can still grow a fig tree in a small space and keep it contained against a wall or a fence. Now, fig trees are super heat tolerant, up to about 100 degrees again. Some varieties are heat tolerant down to 10 degrees. So make sure that you pick a variety for your area that will grow well in your area and survive the winters, especially if you're in a northern climate. The cool thing about fig trees is you can grow them from cuttings, which is exactly how I grew this fig tree here. And this is actually a cutting I took from this plant. It will root here in this pot of soil, and then I'll be able to plant another fig tree somewhere else. Now let's talk triple-digit loving greens that act as perennials, especially in southern climates. Here we're talking kale and chard. And they're also extremely cold tolerant, down to about 20 degrees. So even in your northern climates, they might survive the wintertime and then come back. These both act as beautiful living mulches as well, which you can really use to fill in garden spaces here to eliminate the need to put mulch in your garden. I like to plant them underneath climbing plants to keep the soil cooler underneath, but they're super hardy, delicious, edible. And the great thing is when they start to bolt, like this chard is here, you can cut it off at the base and it will just keep growing back. I've had some plants of chard and kale growing in my garden for several years, even though I cut it back lots and lots of times. It's a really good way to kind of refresh your plants, get new tender leaves. These larger, older leaves do tend to get just a little bit tough, but they're also great in smoothies and in wraps, which is how we really like to eat them. Now this variety here is a red Russian kale. And I'm telling you guys, if you're brand new to growing greens or brand new to growing perennials, I highly recommend to plant the red Russian kale as well as the chard. These are actually in my heat tolerant green seed collection. Oh, which by the way, for Memorial Day, all my seed collections are 50% off with the code GROWFOOD50. So grab those and get some of these planted. Not only are these plants absolutely gorgeous, but they are superfoods, highly nutrient dense. I always want to have lots of kale and chard in my garden, and I know you're going to love them too. By far the hardiest perennial green I've ever grown is this one here, and it's red vein sorrel. Not only is it absolutely gorgeous, but this plant just keeps on growing for year after year after year. It's crazy, crazy hardy. So lasts through the heat, doesn't need any shading, really doesn't skip a beat through the highest temperatures I've ever had. Absolutely gorgeous as well, I do have to say, but it also really does take the cold down to about 0 degrees. So even you northern gardeners that don't get lower than 0, you can grow this in the winter time, and even with a little bit of cover, even if it freezes, it'll still be a great green for you to grow in your garden, and then come back again in the summertime. Now, the only thing you have to do with sorrel is just keep it harvested. You can see how the bottom leaves are kind of flopping over. That's just a little sign that you need to come out here and harvest. I like to pinch or clip about an inch above the bottom stem. That way it grows back a little bit easier. And we literally harvest baskets and baskets full of sorrel. I like to keep the leaves washed and trimmed up in the refrigerator so I can pull them out for a quick salad. They're great sauteed into scrambled eggs. And if you look at the stems, they're red almost like beets. So it's super, super nutrient dense. Literally one of the best power food greens I've ever grown in my garden. Grows easily from seed transplants easily. It's just kind of a no-brainer plant that literally grows itself. Growing your food doesn't get any easier than this. Plant some of these perennials in your garden. Plant them once, you'll have them forever. Let me know which ones you're gonna plant in your garden. As always, I'll be reading your comments. Thanks for watching. See you next time in the garden.